Hey everyone, appreciate you being here. Welcome to the Sound of Southern Charm podcast. I'm Stephen George, and I'm hoping to give you some inspiration and remind you of what you already know. You just need to keep going. Today I'm going to continue my series called Mountaintop Moments, a macro view of the lessons I've learned in my working life. I created the name Mountaintop Moments because I grew up a few minutes away from the Blue Ridge Parkway. And when I was old enough to drive, I took several trips up there to enjoy the scenery. And like the stunning view from there, this podcast series is going to take a positive look at the big picture messages from all my jobs to this point. So let's get started. Welcome to Chapter 2 of Mountaintop Moments, where it's all about what I learned during a job involving a lot of manual labor. So when we left off with Chapter 1, I was discussing how I had picked up a second job while I was working at the grocery store. That all happened because one person took notice of what I was doing. It was any given day in the grocery store, and I was working away. When a guy who worked for a beverage vendor, let's call him Double C for everyone out there, saw me working and decided to strike up a conversation. During the conversation, he mentioned that there may be another opportunity opening up at his company. So he said I should look into it. He told me who I needed to talk to and how to make it happen. So I didn't waste any time. Later that same week, I went in person and applied for the job. For a teenager at the time, the job was definitely a step up in a lot of ways. The work at Double C was a lot harder because it was more labor intensive, but it also paid better. So I looked at it as a win. The new job was weekends only. So that means it took me away from working at the grocery store on the weekends and that third shift position, and only allowed for me to work during the week there, which for me wasn't a big deal because I was going to be making more money with the new company anyway. My job with Double C starting out was going to 4 to 5 grocery stores on Saturdays and Sundays. And at each of those grocery stores, I had to do the same thing: stock the shelves and keep them full for customers, and don't make a mess in the back room. So one of the biggest things that I took from that job is organization, especially from a backroom standpoint. When you're dealing with unloading trucks and supplies for any given situation, you have to be organized. You have to set it up for yourself to make that job as easy as possible. Now, typically that means on the front side of it, you have to do a lot of work. But that work will make things easier as the days and hours go on. I also had to keep in mind that I was the part-time guy, so somebody else did this job during the week. And if I left a mess for them, that was going to create problems. I loved that job at Double C. I got to learn how I like things to be organized while also keeping in mind somebody else, because I associate a lot of freedom in that job. Freedom in just manual labor itself. Yes, you work hard. It is grueling some days. Some days are super long hours, especially for me on Saturdays when I would go into the grocery stores and work. That was when I had truck deliveries and had to organize the back rooms a lot on those days to help set myself up and the other person for the rest of the week. But after each day of work, that was it. I went home. I didn't have to worry about any follow-up phone calls or sending out emails or planning for the next day. I had already planned for the next day and all the work that I had put in that day. So the freedom was, I just wake up and do it again, don't worry about it. And there is freedom in knowing that you just have a job to do, and you get up, you do it, and you go home, and you're done. As time went on, new opportunities within Double C came up, and one of those jobs was working in the warehouse during the week. So that means I had to cut out the grocery store completely to try and make more money with this other company. Now, to give a brief description of what I had to do in the warehouse, it was pretty straightforward. I had to load 9 trucks every day with the help of 2 other guys. But it wasn't just throwing the product on the trucks. No, we had to figure out how to load those trucks so A, the stuff wouldn't fall out when they opened the bay doors, and 2, how the driver liked it so that they could be efficient. So there was a little bit of empathy involved in that job, where you had to figure out if you were in that person's shoes, how would you like things done? I almost forgot another fun part of the job in the warehouse: driving a forklift. That's right, at 17 years old, I was certified to drive a forklift, and that was fun. And for the sake of the conversation, always super safe. So I was pretty much working 7 days a week for the most part as a teenager. I would get up and go to school, and then when school let out, I would go straight to work, and there were some days I wouldn't get off till 1 or 2 in the morning, only to have to get back up and go back to school the next day, or the same day, depending on how you look at it. Then I would still have to wake up early on Saturday and Sunday mornings to go get up and do the grocery store part of the job. But I wouldn't trade that time back for anything. I worked at Double C for 6 years. That includes transferring from one office to another while I was in college. I was a consistent person that they could rely on, and for me, that meant a lot. So you're probably thinking, Stephen, you sound like you really enjoyed that job. Why would you leave? Well, I'm going to get into that a little more in another chapter of Mountaintop Moments. Be sure to subscribe to find out the next part of the story. If you're interested in working together, check out my samples at stephengeorgevo.com. You can also email me at stephen@stephengeorgevo.com. See you next time.